Now let us go and read through the question and the additional information, and then we can probably complete our solutions as we go along. So, what they are saying here, this is where the question starts. Cocoa Limited was incorporated with an authorized share capital of 2,500,000, non-par value, ordinary shares, right? So that is going to be something that we need to disclose in our ordinary share capital note. That is just, remember, your authorized share capital is the maximum number of shares that you are allowed to issue. That will be determined by your memorandum of incorporation. So when you are, as the promoter of a company, when you first register the company at the CIPC, the Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission, then you have to lodge an MOI or Memorandum of Incorporation, and therein, one of the many things you have to indicate is what is your authorized share capital. So there you'll state my authorized share capital is going to be 50 million. That means you cannot issue more than 50 million unless you change your MOI, which is not that easy. You need a special resolution from the shareholders to change the MOI, which means that a certain number of shareholders must be present, or a certain percentage of the shareholders, I think it's 90% or something of the shareholders must be present at such a meeting, and the meeting must be carried by a majority of 2/3 or more. So, like I say, it's not that easy, and then you've got to relodge an amended MOI to the CIPC. Anyway, that is not for financial accounting. That in your third year, you'll have corporate procedures, and then they'll tell you all about those requirements. Right. So anyway, that is our authorized ordinary share capital, 2.5 million, and then also 750,000. 10%, that is our dividend or coupon rate, 10% redeemable, so they can be redeemed. We can pay the shareholders back. Redeemable preference shares also of no par value. That is just the nominal value or the name attached to it. We discussed that. The preference shares can be redeemed at the option of the company. We mentioned that last week or the week before. Why do they state that? It is simply to indicate that the preference shares have been recorded as equity. That is what it means. It has been recorded as equity, and that is the only situation you'll find in financial accounting too, but in general financial reporting 4. In the advanced diploma, you'll also look at the other possibility where the shares are redeemed either on a fixed date or when a fixed event occurs, or when it's at the option of the shareholders. Then the company does not have control over the redemption. Then, ladies and gentlemen, those preference shares should be treated as liabilities instead of as equity. But that doesn't bother us in financial accounting too. But I'm just giving you the full picture. And we already know the company has a financial year end of the 28th of February. Now, right at the beginning, this is what I've indicated here. Okay, so what is given? The first paragraph, or the first two paragraphs, just gives us our, uh, uh, the what's in our MOI. In other words, the authorized share capital. But sometimes in that same paragraph, they also tell you which shares have already been issued. But sometimes you'll find it in a subsequent paragraph. In any case, just a little hint there. And then, ladies and gentlemen, on the 1st of March 2009, we already know, we've seen this somewhere. Where did we see it? Yeah. Well, lots of places. Lots of places. Let us go to the required section. Still down, still down. Where's the required? Still down, still down. Required, right? So here they talk about the year ended the 28th of February 2010, right? So that is our financial year. And a few other places it is also mentioned. So we can see that the 1st of January, where is it again? Still up. 1st of March, sorry, not January, 1st of March 2009 is the very first day of the 2010 financial year. So we have to do everything that we are required to do for the year ended the 28th of February 2010, and that year starts on the 1st of March 2009. That's why I've indicated there. This is the first thought that should pop up in your minds when you read that is the beginning of the current financial year. Right. And it also actually states it there. I don't think I really noticed that on Sunday. But anyway, they say on that date, the beginning of the year, the following shares were already issued. In other words, this is the situation, the status quo, our financial position at the beginning of the year. Already at that stage, 800,000 ordinary shares amounting to 2.5 million uh, uh, was in issue already. So now we can, if we need to, if this wasn't buyback of ordinary shares, then we can easily go and calculate the average issue price. We don't have to. I'm just saying that you could take the 2.5 million, divide by 800,000, and that will give you the average share issue price over the many years that issues may have taken place. They also tell us 300,000 of those 10% redeemable. Here they also say cumulative. Ooh, so we cannot forfeit them of their dividends. Their dividends, if in any year we skipped it, it means before we can redeem those shares, we must bring those preference dividends up to date. So this is also a very, very important fact. Like I mentioned there, we must look out for the possibility of accrued dividends. Possibly, if any year uh, the company skipped declaring dividends, it means if these preference shares are cumulative in nature, we'll have to provide to also pay all the dividends that have not been declared and have not been paid right up till the date that the redemption takes place. And they were issued at a price of 4 rands per share. So in this case, they gave us the share capital value, and we could have then gone and calculated the issue price because we also know how many shares have been issued prior to this year. In this case, they do the opposite. They tell us also how many shares have been issued prior to the year, but they tell us that the issue price for each share was 4 rand. So it doesn't take a calculator to just then quickly see for yourselves what the share capital, the cumulative, redeemable cumulative preference share capital is. It is simply 300,000 multiplied by 4. 3 times 4 is 12, so that will be 1.2 million rands, right? So that is another thing that should pop up in our minds already. The value of the total or the share capital value of our preference shares is 1.2 million. 300,000 times 4. Then we must also bear in mind, I mentioned this last week, it's not in all cases that all preference shares are going to be redeemed. Sometimes they might say 20% of the shares will be redeemed, or half the shares will be redeemed, or they might say 100,000 of the 300,000 is going to be redeemed, right? So they will tell you, or they will say all the shares are redeemed. But in any case, in this particular question, as we'll see just a little bit just now, uh, they all the preference shares are actually going to be redeemed, not a portion of it, right? And we'll also see it is going to be redeemed at a premium. Uh, that was the only place I could squeeze this little information box in. I possibly could have squeezed it in somewhere, maybe there as well. But anyway, the fact is that that deals with what is coming now. So then they provide us with the additional information. They say on the 1st of February 2010, so this is now the first day of the last month. That pops into your mind now, right? The first day of the last month of the current financial year. The board of directors had a meeting and passed a resolution. In other words, they made a decision, it's in the minutes, to do what? 1.1 subsection of that, to redeem the issued. And if they say the issued, then it means all of it, right? So that is possibly another little hint you can take here. If they say redeem the issued, it means all of it, right? Otherwise, they would have said to redeem 10% or 50% or 80% or 100,000 or 50,000 of the shares, right? If they don't specify, then it means it is all of it. So redeem the issue, in other words, all 300,000 of our 10% redeemable cumulative preference shares. Oopsie, also we're going to give them a little bit extra. We're going to make those shareholders very happy, even though they are no longer going to be shareholders after the redemption. They at least are going to get all their capital back. They would have generated nice income from dividends over the years, and now we're even giving them a little bit of extra. So we are going to repay that at a premium of 20 cents per share. Once again, this could have been expressed as a percentage, ladies and gentlemen. If they had said, let's say, for instance, 2% at a premium of 2%, then that 2% would have been on the value. In other words, on the 1.2 million rands. Okay, so if it was a percentage for a premium on redemption of preference shares, it'll be on the value, just like was the case with dividends. But here they say per share, 20 cents per share. So now we're not looking at the capital or the value of the shares. We're looking at that one, the number of shares, 300,000. So now we know that premium, we already can jot this down on our rough work book or on our rough work piece of paper here. It means that premium is going to amount to 300,000 shares multiplied by 20 cents per share. There I've given you that little calculation. That gives us 60,000 rands, right? So we know that the capital that we have to return to those investors when we withdraw those share certificates is going to be 1.2 million, 300,000 times 4 rands, or whatever number or whatever portion we are redeeming multiplied by what they paid for it initially, because we are giving them that same amount back, but more. Okay, that's where the premium comes in. But anyway, so that is what we are going to return to them or refund to those investors. And then we're giving them that 60,000, that 20 cents per share in addition to what they originally invested. Then they say, ladies and gentlemen, in 1.2, we declare a preference dividend for the 2009 financial year. Whoa, 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 whoa. What does this mean? It means that in the 2009, the previous financial year, we obviously did not declare this preference dividend. We probably then also didn't declare any other dividend. Now, if these preference shares had not been cumulative, then it would not have been necessary for the company to declare that 2009 dividend, only the 2010 dividend. Possibly. They don't even need to do that. But because these shares are cumulative in nature, it means those shareholders, those preference shareholders, never forfeit their dividends. So once the company is in a position to declare dividends, ordinary dividends, the company must bring all the preference dividends up to date. Or in this particular case, where the company is going to redeem those shares, they're going to give the money back to the investors, they also have to bring all the dividends up to date. So they must declare a preference dividend for the 2009 financial year as well as the 2010 financial year. This is actually one of the reasons I picked this question 4 over question 3, because I think this might, I'm not sure about the other questions. I haven't gone through them in quite a long time, probably 5 or 6 years. But anyway, this one you have to declare for 2 years. And I think in question 3, those shares weren't cumulative in nature and you only had to declare it for 1 year. Okay. Then, ladies and gentlemen, they say the dividends payable for both financial years, we must obviously raise a liability for it first and then pay it. Will be paid to preference shareholders on the 28th of February 2010. Wow, we're lucky. They are paying it on the last day of the year. So that means all of those liabilities will not going to appear in our statement of financial position under our current liabilities, because they actually pay it on or before the last day of the year. If they did not pay it on the last day or before the last day of the year, then all of those monies that we owe to our preference shareholders will be disclosed as a current liability in our statement of financial position, right? And then they also say no other cumulative preference dividends were accrued. In other words, we did pay for, let's say, 2006 and 2007 and 2008, all the other years in which those shares were in issue. We did actually declare and pay the dividends. So these are the only 2 financial years where they are still outstanding. Right. And here we've just shown you how to go and calculate it. Well, that's very easy. Once again, it is a coupon rate, right? There we see it's a coupon or dividend rate. So we are not going to calculate it on the number of shares. We are going to calculate if it was 10 cents per share dividend, which we only find with ordinary shares, then we would have calculated that 10 cents per share on the number of shares. But here we've got a coupon rate, right? And we always find that in the case of preference shares, there will be a coupon or dividend rate attached to it, always. They might get some more, they might get X cents per share, but that is if they are also participating preference shares, which they don't tell us here. And you remember we discussed this last week or the week before. If they don't mention that it's participating, or they don't mention that it's redeemable, or they don't mention that it's cumulative, then it's not. The default is always not, right? So here we know it is redeemable, it is cumulative, but it's not participating. So they only get their 10%, but on the value of the shares, which we've already calculated for ourselves, is 1.2 million. The 300,000 times the issue price. So the capital that we have of those investors is 1.2 million rands, and they are getting a dividend for 2009 of 120,000 and also 120,000 for 2010. Then our dividends are up to date at the date of the redemption when that takes place. Okay. Then they say, ladies and gentlemen, the capital, the premium, as well as all the preference dividends. Aha. Remember here, if they did not say that preference dividends, right, then it means you have sufficient money in your own bank accounts, maybe in a savings account or a notice deposit or call deposit, right? Or maybe even in your current account. But anyway, if you had sufficient money to pay the dividends, then it would not have formed part of your financing plan. But yeah, this is really, if you read between the lines, that is what you've got to do here. This tells us that the company does not have sufficient money even to pay the preference dividends. So they have to find a way to fund it. So they have to drop a financing plan. So they are saying here the capital which we must refund to them, that additional gift to them, that premium on the redemption, as well as the preference dividends. Why I've underlined all is, remember, that's for 2009 as well as for 2010, right? Both years. So those dividends that are payable at the redemption at the very latest must also be part of our financing plan. And how are we going to finance it? We're going to obtain a loan. That will require a journal entry. Obtain a loan from Adubank. Stop. Let us pause. What's the journal entry, ladies and gentlemen? What are we going to debit? Type for me, please. We're going to do that before we even look at our answer book or our solution. What are we going to debit? We are obtaining a loan from a bank. Thank you, Shanique. Spot on. Let me give you a medal. Very well done, Shanique. There we go. You are going to debit your bank account because you got money from that loan, right? Which account are you going to credit? Which account are you going to credit? Can be a generic name or a very specific name. Thank you, Shanique. You're on fire. You're on fire. There we go. Okay, thank you. Oh, that was Caitlin. Sorry, Caitlin, you are on fire too. Okay. You both are on fire, Shanique and Caitlin. Loan, ladies and gentlemen, or you can be specific. If this company has got more than one loan, then you'll open up a new general ledger account, and then you'll call it loan from Adubank or loan colon Adubank, right? If you've got other loans, or if you haven't got any other loans, you'll just say loan, like Caitlin suggested there, or maybe long-term loan or whatever, just so that you as an accountant knows what that account contains, right? Then, ladies and gentlemen, they have cash. Oh, they're not completely cash strapped. So they have what? Well, they might have a lot of money. They might have millions in their bank account, but they say that 135,000 of their cash, right? They can use as part of the financing plan. That's not to say that's all the cash they have. It'll be, in fact, stupid. It'll be crazy if they use all their cash available for this redemption. Then they're going to be illiquid. As soon as they won't pass the liquidity test. You know, the liquidity test say you must be able to pay your creditors and expenses as they become due after the redemption has taken place, or after the share buyback has taken place, right? So if that destroys the company's cash resources, then they won't pass the liquidity test. It's as simple as that. That's why we have that section in the Companies Act, right? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so what they are saying, 135,000 rands of our cash resources we can use for this redemption without it affecting our liquidity or without it affecting our solvency, right? And then say if we still need some money, if that isn't sufficient to be able to do the redemption, then the balance, whatever we still need, excuse me, will be obtained from a fresh issue of ordinary shares. We saw this coming right at the start, didn't we? We saw this coming. So from a fresh issue of ordinary shares at 3 rands 50 per share, and we are going to issue those shares to existing shareholders. Let me hide that. If we issue shares for money, what they are going to be doing here, they are only issuing shares for one reason, and that is to get money. So it's clearly not going to be a capitalization issue. We all get that, don't we? Can't be a capitalization issue because there's no purpose then. They want to get the money. And they also say here, and that is really for the purpose of our statement of changes in equity, as we'll see later. They say we are only going to issue those shares for money, obviously, to our existing shareholders. What type of an issue is that? You can type for me. It's clearly not a capitalization issue. What it is, a special kind of issue. It's not a public offering. It's not a private placement. What do we call that kind of issue? You see, we're doing revision while we're doing the question. What do we call that kind of issue? Rights issue. Thank you, Shanique. Now you also deserve that on fire, which you already over and above your medal, right? So you've got the flame as well as the medal. Okay. Great. Thank you, Shanique. Right, that's a rights issue. And why have they mentioned that, ladies and gentlemen? When we get to our statement of changes in equity, we've got to describe which changes happen to our equity. We've got to describe it. And now we know that it's a rights issue, right? So it's all important information. They don't tell you that for peanuts, right? They don't tell you that just because they want a longer sentence, right? To get three lines. No, there's a reason why they say in proportion. They shouldn't have even mentioned their rights issue. But anyway, whoever drew up this question, I think this was my colleague, Mrs. Moore, was very merciful and said rights issue, but that wasn't necessary because if you see that sentence, it should tell you it's a rights issue. Okay, right, ladies and gentlemen, and they say we are going to issue whichever number of shares. You remember one of the first requirements was to calculate how many shares we've got to go and issue, right? So we've got to calculate how many shares. So they also tell us that we are going to issue it. We're offering it to our existing shareholders. They can take it up at 3 rands 50 per share. So it's probably trading. Our shares are probably trading on the market at 4 rands or thereabouts. In any case, more than that. So they are giving an incentive to their existing shareholders to take up the money, to take up the shares so that they can get the money. If they buy new shares on the stock exchange or the securities exchange, the company doesn't get more money, right? You obviously know that. If they just buy the shares on the trade on the market, the old owner of those shares gets the money, right? Not the company. The company only got the money when they issued the shares. So now that is why they are issuing more shares, and they've got to give a good reason and incentive to those shareholders. Why should they take up the shares? So they will be offering it at slightly lower than the price that they would pay if they would go and buy those shares on the market. So that will probably ensure that all the shareholders take up that offer, which is nice to have, which is exactly their intention. Not that they probably need all the shareholders to take it up. It might not be that much money that they require. Anyway, okay, so let us carry on, ladies and gentlemen. Then they also say the directors were satisfied that the company's assets were fairly valued and exceeded its liabilities. So that means they've passed the solvency test. Once again, this information is not just for our pleasure. That is to tell you you can proceed with the redemption. And they were also satisfied, the directors, that the company will be able to pay its debts, not only its debts actually, but also other expenses such as salaries and wages and water and electricities and so on, as and when it becomes payable, right? And then they say assume a dividends tax rate of 20%. The dividends tax rate is currently 20%. It started off many years ago. What was it, about 20 years ago, at 10%. Then it went to 12.5%. Then it went to 15%. And about 5 or 6 or so years ago, it went up to 20%. And we're still there, right? Anyway, we'll do dividends tax as a subtopic of taxation, but just remember at this stage, what you need to know is that we have to subtract that tax portion from the dividends before we pay it over to our preference shareholders. So we cannot pay the full dividend to them. We've got to subtract they call it a withholdings type of tax. So dividends tax, just like employees tax, is another withholdings tax. If you work, you'll know it. Otherwise, ask your parents who work, right? Ask them what happens when they get their salary. No, They don't get the full gross salary. They only get the salary after the income tax, the PAYE. That's the pay as you earn system. After the tax has been deducted, the same happens with dividends tax, right? It's also a withholdings tax. We'll talk about that from probably the week after next week or so. So the company that declares the dividend must keep that 20% tax back and pay that 20% over to the taxman, right? To the South African Revenue Service or whichever tax authority this company falls under. If this is an American company, they must pay it over to the IRS. And then only the rest, the 80%, the remaining portion, will actually be paid as a dividend, a net dividend to the shareholders. But fortunately for them, that dividends that they now have received that were subject to dividends tax is not subject to income tax as well. So there's a little heads up for when we start talking about tax matters next week. When you receive dividends, it is exempt from tax, right? So it's tax free. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. At this stage, just remember, you must withhold that 20%. That's not going to be paid. You got to, in fact, from an accounting perspective, only 80% of that will be a liability towards your shareholder. I'm saying 80% of the dividends, right? Not 80% of your whole redemption, just the dividends. So 80% of the dividends will become a liability towards your shareholders, and 20% of the dividends that you've declared will become a liability towards the South African Revenue Service. As we'll see in a few weeks' time, for that we'll credit an account called current tax payable, dividends tax. Right. Anyway, that's for the future. And then lastly, they say all the transactions decided upon by the directors at that meeting on the 1st of February, the first day of the last month, took place as expected on the 28th of February 2010. So this is when all the action happens, right? So this means also that this is the date that we have to use to record the transaction. On the 1st of February, the decisions were taken, right? How to do or first of all, the fact that we are going to redeem all of those shares. And then also by that date, they would have given the CFO or the chief accountant the task to see whether the company passes those two tests, to draw up a financing plan and so on. And then on that 28th of February, that's when everything happens, right? So everything comes to fruition and they actually do it. They do the redemption, they get the loan and so on. They issue the ordinary shares. And then also they say, in addition, Cocoa Limited paid the full amount due to its preference shareholders. So in other words, before the end of the year, not only do we raise the liability towards our shareholders and towards the revenue service, we also pay it, right? We also paid it before that date. But here they say, in addition, Cocoa Limited paid the full amount due to its preference. Oh, no, it's after the year end. There was a miss. I must go and have a look at that question again. There was a little error earlier where they said everything takes place. No, not everything. Everything but the payment. I thought so, but I wasn't 100% sure. Okay. So they say they paid the full amount due to the preference shareholders. In other words, the capital, right? The capital plus the premium plus 80% of the dividends, as well as the revenue service 3 days after the year end. Oops, that looks like 2 years and 3 days. I think that should be 2010. I'm sorry. I didn't actually review the question when I put these little notes in. I just looked at the question and put the notes in. So that will probably be 2010, right? So 3 days after the financial year end, not 2 years and 3 days. Anyway, so the point is, the thing that matters is after the year end. So we've also got to go and do certain entries on the 3rd of March. Besides everything that happened on the 28th of February, also what happens on the 3rd of March, 3 days into the new year, where we actually paid our preference shareholders everything we owe them. Just to repeat, the capital plus the premium plus 80% of the dividends. And we also paid the revenue service. That's quite soon. Normally you get 21 or 28 days actually after the declaration of a dividend to pay, but they decided let's get it over. Let's get the pain over and done with. Let's pay everyone. So in any case, so on the 3rd of March, they also paid that 20% portion, the tax portion, to the revenue service. 20% of the dividend, not of everything. Okay. Right. We've already mentioned those tests. Right. And then how much do we need to pay to SARS? Well, we'll have to see what the dividend is. And then 20% of the dividend will be paid to SARS. Right. Okay, we've already seen the dividend rate is going to be 10%, and it's going to be for 2 years, uh, and the shareholders will get 80% of that, and the revenue service will get 20% of that. So now we can go and do. Oh, okay. Then I think we've had a look at that. They say on the 28th of February, that's those ordinary shares that they mentioned that we might have to issue if we haven't got enough money through the other means. Let's just go back there. They say we get a loan from a do bank, 1,050,000. We've got 135 of our own money available. Then if we need some more money, we can go and issue ordinary shares at R3.50. And here they just tell us that yes, we did need to issue those shares. So they say on the 28th of February 2010, when all of those things take place, which is not very realistic, but anyways, let's assume it did. Ordinary shares, that is to fund part of the funding, part of our financing plan to fund the redemption of the redeemable preference shares. So those ordinary shares were issued. And they also say, just to boot, share issue expenses of 12,000 rands were paid as well. We know that has to be written off nowadays. The share issue expenses must be written off to the share capital account under the old Companies Act. It had to be written off to your retained earnings account, but we no longer write that off to retained earnings. So you can even totally forget that it ever happened. You're not going to get a company that hasn't done their books uh, before 2011. Okay, unlikely in any case. So share issue expenses of 12,000 rands were paid. We do not need to cater for that. We do not need to provide for that in our financing plan. If we didn't have that, then we might have had to provide for that in the financing plan as well. But fortunately, we do have at least that 12,000 rands, so we do not have to provide for it in our financing plan because we can pay that from our available cash resources, the money that we already have, right? And like I say, what we must now think of, what did we say? When we close off these accounts, where does this get closed off to? The share issue expenses to the share ordinary share capital account. So it'll reduce the share capital, our ordinary share capital account, by 12,000 rands. And that will be a movement. That will be another change in equity. So that will be a line item in our statement of changes in equity. And then they say the retained earnings had an opening balance of 800,000 rands at the beginning of the current financial period. That is just to provide us with an opening balance for retained earnings, right? Obviously, when we see right at the start where they told us what our issued shares were, where was it? The issued shares, 800,000 ordinary shares at amounting 2.5 million. That will be the opening balance. That 2.5 million will be the opening balance of the column for ordinary share capital in our statement of changes in equity. And this 300,000 multiplied by 4 rands, in other words, 1,200,000 rands, will be the opening balance of the column that we call redeemable, 10% redeemable cumulative preference share capital, right? That will be the opening balance. So we must just bear that in mind when we look at our statement of changes in equity, and then they give us this opening balance for uh, the retained earnings at 800,000. So those seems to be our only three columns besides the totals column that we'll need. Those are our only categories of equity. Okay. Right, ladies and gentlemen, and they also gave us the total comprehensive income for the year. So that's another line item that we will require for our statement of changes in equity. And then we've got another little transaction here. So that's why I'm saying this question 4 has everything, including the kitchen sink, right? So every possibility. So this is now nothing to do with the redemption. They just say that also that was a busy day. That 28th of February, they didn't sleep at all. Also on the 28th of February 2010, it was decided that fully paid up shares. So now we are talking about a capitalization issue. They also say now they're also rewarding their ordinary shareholders. They probably couldn't afford after that redemption, after they did the redemption, they couldn't afford to pay an ordinary dividend. So they're saying, oops, what are we now going to do to please our ordinary shareholders? Let's give them shares. Okay. We can't give them money. Let's give them more shares. So they say to please their ordinary shareholders, they say they've decided to issue some fully paid up shares to their existing shareholders, obviously, who were on the share register on the 31st of January, right? So they've got to have a cutoff point who's going to get those dividends in any case. So the same applies to who's going to get the new shares. And these existing shareholders received 1 share for every 4 shares held at the prevailing market price of 4 rands per share. So we'll have to go and see how many shares were in issue after all the other transactions have been recorded, and then they get 1/4 of that in as a number of shares, 1 share for every 4 shares, and each share will be issued at a value, even though they don't get the money. They can't debit bank. They must still find a source for it. So they will debit their retained earnings account and they will credit their ordinary share capital account by whichever number of shares they're issuing now, multiplied by 4 rands per share. Right. So there we are. So now this is just to, we've already read through this. So this is just to go and do that. So first of all, we've got to see how many shares we've got to issue. So let's go to our solution. So, ladies and gentlemen, how does our financing plan look like? I'm sure Dr. Briver also looked at that because I know that I have it in my PowerPoint slides. But let us have a look at it again. So, your financing plan will consist of 2 sections. What do you need, and where the heck am I going to get it? Right, simple as that. So, our first section is the cash required. How much money do I need to complete this redemption? And if I have sufficient money, then I don't have to go any further. That's end of story. Whoa, yippee, done. But if I do not have enough money, then we'll have to go and see where are we going to get the money, right? And we've already seen that they are only making 135,000 rands of their money available for this redemption. Right, so let us first see how much do we need. How much do we have to pay them back? Very simple, ladies and gentlemen. We are redeeming all 300,000 shares. What did they pay for the shares initially? 4 rand. We're going to give them their 4 rands per share back. So in total, we are going to pay back 1,200,000 rands worth of capital that was initially invested. We're going to give them that little bit extra. We've already seen how this calculation is done. On those 300 shares, we're going to give each of those shares, each share owned by a shareholder is going to get an additional 20 cents per share. That's where we got that 60,000 rands. And then our preference dividends, ladies and gentlemen, that's 10% of 2 million. You know, the total value, of our share capital, 300,000 shares at 4 rands a share was 1.2 million. The dividend rate or coupon rate is 10%. We saw that as part of the name of those shares even. So that is simply going to be the value of the shares, 1.2 million, multiplied by our dividend rate of 10%. But now remember, this is not for 1 year. This is for the 2009 year as well as the 2010 year, right? So it's for 2 years. So we've got to provide for preference dividends of twice as much, 240,000 rands, right? So the total cash that we need to be able to complete this redemption is 1.5 million, right? That's a good place to be. Now we at least know what we need. Now it's simply a matter of seeing, do we have enough? And if not, okay, then it becomes a little bit more complicated. How am I going to get enough? Right. So how much do we have already that we made available to use for the redemption? We saw that earlier, 135,000 rands, right? And then our first port of call is to go and take out a loan from, I think it's called Ado Bank. Much ado about nothing. That is a Shakespearean sentence. Anyway, I think it's even a play called Much Ado About Nothing. Shakespearean play. My wife is big into Shakespeare. Anyway, where were we? So what can we get from that loan? You've already done. You've given us the journal entries. We debit our bank account. We credit the secured loan, so we know that we get 1,050,000 rands. Okay. So how much have we got now? We've got now one. If we add those two figures together, we've got 1,185,000. Right, so that's how much we got, 1,185,000. But we need 1,500,000. So how much are we still short? What do we still need? We need a further, there we go, 350,000 rands. That's the difference between what we need in total, the cash required, and what we have, what we are able to either have or able to obtain through other means. So what remains is what we must fund through that issue of ordinary shares. So we must issue ordinary shares to the value, the capital value of 315,000 rands. And we saw earlier that we can issue those shares. Let me just see. I don't want to waste our time because time is precious. Where was it? Anyway, there we go. We can issue those ordinary shares at 3 rands 50. That was in paragraph 2 of the additional information. Right. So that is what we can issue them at. So how many shares do we need to issue to be able to get 315,000 rands? It's 315,000 divided by what we can issue each share, 3 rands 50, which means that we will have to go and issue 90,000 shares, right? So the number of shares that we need to issue to get 315,000, if we can issue them at 3 rands 15 each to our existing shareholders, will be 90,000. So we now know, the directors now know, they got the report back from the chief accountant. This is our financing plan. They now know that we'll have to issue 90,000 ordinary shares to complete the redemption of those preference shares. Right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to waste your time on going through the journals. We've already done some of them, so this is very simple. That is for obtaining the loan. This is for issuing the shares. We get money, we credit our ordinary share capital account, and so on. Okay, then just the steps. I'm sure you did that when you looked at the slideshow yesterday. First of all, what you do, you cancel the balance on that share capital account for the shares that are no longer going to be in issue. In this case, we are going to redeem all of the shares, so we cancel that whole 1.2 million balance. It already has a credit balance. So if we want to get rid of that credit balance, what do we have to do with that account? We've got to go and debit that account. So that account, the 10% redeemable cumulative preference share capital, that's not a description. That's the name of our account, ladies and gentlemen. That's not a description. In our statements, we'll get descriptions. But in our general ledger, those are account names. That account has a balance at the beginning of the year of 1.2 million, as we've seen. We've got to get rid of it because we are going to refund those shareholders. They're out of our lives, right? How do we get rid of a credit balance? By debiting that account. We're going to give them that additional 60,000. So that is almost like giving them an additional little piece of our retained earnings. So similar to actually giving them a dividend, I can tell you, right? So that is a very similar principle. They are actually getting a piece of their retained earnings, of the company's retained earnings, as an extra little payment. So we can already see that that will come off our retained earnings column in our statement of changes in equity. Obviously, that will come off our ordinary 10% redeemable cumulative preference share capital column in our statement of changes in equity, but that will come off our retained earnings. And then in this year, even though half of it applies or comes from last year, we've only made the declaration this year. So that whole 2 years dividend will be debited. Preference dividend declared, I prefer to call that account preference dividend declared. Although I get it that if it's only been proposed and it hasn't been declared yet, there is no journal entry. So that has to be preference dividends declared. And we raise our liability in total to our shareholders. We're going to credit our preference shareholders. Then, ladies and gentlemen, out of our own resources, we've paid the share issue expenses. Initially, ladies and gentlemen, we would have debited share issue expenses. I must just explain this. Initially, we would have debited share issue expenses, but at the end of the year, when we do our adjustments, our year-end adjustments, as you know, we are going to close off our nominal accounts and we are going to balance off our real accounts. Financial Accounting 101. Okay, so when we close off our balance sheet accounts or real accounts, good, we carry balances forward. But when we close off our nominal accounts, we carry no balance forward. It's going to be closed off to another account. So this share issue expenses account, which we originally debited, will be closed off to our share capital, ordinary share capital account, because we issued ordinary shares, right? We didn't issue preference shares, we redeemed preference shares, but we issued ordinary shares, right? So that will be ordinary share issue expenses, and we close it off to our ordinary share capital account, which means that this will appear as a change in equity in the column called ordinary share capital minus 12,000 rands, right? So we paid that, we recorded that, we closed it off to ordinary share capital. And then lastly, ladies and gentlemen, we also got to raise, well, we've going to pay this later on, but the last part of what happened on the 28th of February, we've still got to go and also adjust for that part which does not go to the shareholders. Here we said that 240,000 rands worth of dividends are declared to them, but they're not going to get that. They're only going to get 80% of that. The other 20% we will going to pay to the revenue service, right? So we have to now take it out of that liability. It's already in that 1.5 million, but we're not going to pay them. We don't owe 1.5 million to the shareholders, the preference shareholders. We owe 1.5 million less the tax on the dividends. So we've got to take the tax on the dividends out of what we owe the shareholders. So ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what happens here. We debit the preference shareholders. In other words, we reduce that amount that we owe to them, and we go and raise the liability towards the taxman. Taxman, I've already mentioned what we'll call this account earlier. And we've calculated the dividends tax owing to the revenue service as what was it? 20%. That's the dividend tax rate. 20% of what's the total dividend? 240,000. So it'll be 240,000 times 20%. That gives us 48,000. Right. So here I've also given you the calculations. Right, ladies and gents, our time is almost up. So, and this is this is where they make the payment, right? This is where they make the payment. So at that stage, once you've done this adjustment, the balance on your preference shareholders account isn't 1,500,000 anymore. The balance now is 1,500,000 less 48,000, right? So that is the balance on your preference shareholders that we owe them on that account. So now we're going to pay them, ladies and gentlemen. So we debit the preference shareholders with the full amount that we owe them. So in other words, the remaining balance, the 1,500,000 less the 48,000, and we are going to relieve ourselves of the liability towards the taxman by debiting that liability. This happens on the 3rd of March to 10, as we've said. And we obviously transfer the money from our bank account to the individual shareholders. So there'll be many EFTs. There could be hundreds of EFTs. So each individual shareholder will get an EFT, and then the revenue service will get one payment, right? We'll transfer one amount of 48,000 to them. So one EFT for the revenue service, one EFT for each individual shareholder. But those total EFTs, money that you are going to be paying out of your bank account, will amount to 1.5 million, right? And here, that's no mystery. We've looked at this on more than one occasion. That is just recording that capitalization issue. And this is the important one, ladies and gentlemen, and that's the other important one. So that you will have to work through on your own, but it's easy now that you know what happened. There we have our opening balances and the other total comprehensive income that they've given us. And there we see all our movements, all the movements, right? The capitalization issue, which is funded by our retained earnings. We didn't get money for the capitalization issue. So it's going to increase your ordinary share capital and decrease your retained earnings. That makes that capitalization such a unique event. No other issue will that happen. In other issues, you get money. Okay. The redemption, how we disclose that. And here, ladies and gentlemen, I think I even typed it somewhere. No, it might be somewhere else. In any case, somewhere. Yeah, right. I thought I put it in. I remember that. Yeah, remember, here you're not going to type the name of the accounts. There's the name of the accounts, right? Those are the headings of the accounts that form part of your equity. Yeah. No, no, no. You can't now type your ordinary share capital or preference share capital or retained earnings. That is nonsense. That is rubbish. You can't do that. Okay. This is a description of what happened. In other words, we made a capitalization issue. We made a rights issue. We have ordinary share issue expenses that was incurred and that is now being set off against ordinary share capital account, right? And so on. So these are the descriptions of what happened, the way that we are going to describe in our statement of changes in equity to the users of the statement what happened to the equity, right? And then lastly, ladies and gentlemen, those notes, as you know, we start with the ordinary shares and then we'll have a separate note for our preference share capital. And we start with what is the number of shares that is authorized, and then we look at the issued. Don't forget that you must mention, if there are non-par value shares, you must mention the fact that they have no par value. Had they been par value shares, you must mention the par value. And then again, these are descriptions, right? These are descriptions. And very importantly, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes students make that mistake. They repeat the values. No, 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 no. Those values are in our statement of changes in equity. We don't repeat any information. This is new information. This is the number of shares that we disclose in the note. Right, so our ordinary share capital note, what happened? At the beginning, well, we've got 2.5 million that we are allowed to issue. At the beginning of the year, 800,000 of those shares, the number, remember, were in issue. We issued a further 290,000 shares during the year. How? 200,000 rands to get the was a capitalization issue, as you remember, where we got no money from it, and 90,000 90,000 not rands, shares. 90,000 shares was from the rights issue. Now you also know why we had to calculate how many shares we need to issue. It's to be able to disclose it. Right, so 290 shares, number of shares were issued during the year, which means that at the end of the year, we have a balance outstanding of our issued shares of 1,090,000. And then the same with your preference share capital. What was authorized, then the issued, the number in issue at the beginning of the year, we redeemed them during the year, no balance at the end of the year. If we didn't redeem all of them, ladies and gentlemen, clearly then there will be a balance. So don't just assume that all of the time there's going to be a zero balance after a redemption. No, there might still be other of those redeemable preference shares in issue. You might have only redeemed a certain number or a certain percentage. Okay, so that is that whole question, ladies and gentlemen, analyzed, illustrated, made colorful, so you can't go wrong. So just keep those principles in mind when you do such a question, and many other kinds of uh, financial accounting questions. Okay, I've really overstayed my welcome. I'm sorry about that. You're off to your next class, I'm sure. Thank you very much for attending. Then next week we'll start with taxation matters. And then not next week, Friday, then the week after will be the test. And the Monday after that, uh, no, it's the Monday after next week, the 28th, will release the assignment, which is then due 2 weeks afterwards. Thank you so much. Have a lovely Easter weekend. Let us not forget. Have a lovely Easter weekend. Enjoy. See you next week. Bye bye.